Good morning. My name's Cecilia, and I thought it might be helpful to share with some of the people that are at home right now and having some challenges getting supplies, some basic canning tips that will help extend the shelf life of products when you're able to get them. And I want to thank my wonderful husband, Michael, for recording me because we've never done this before. So please forgive us if it's not perfect. Okay?
It's my first time too.
Exactly. It's Michael's first time too. So yesterday I was very blessed to receive a large amount of potatoes from a neighbor, and I canned up a batch, and I'm going to can up another batch this morning. And there are certain supplies that you will need to can. This is a water bath canner, and it's good for certain foods, but it's not good for all foods. This is a pressure canner, and it is what we use for meats and certain vegetables, potatoes specifically. These are canning jars. I'm sure you've all seen these. And these are lids and rings. Helpful tip is I keep my rings on a bungee cord and then I hang them in my pantry so they don't take up a lot of drawer space. That's kind of a little tip. This is a magnet that we'll use. I use tongs when I have to use sanitized jars that are very hot. I use tongs to pick them up. This is a jar lifter and a funnel and a ladle. These are just your basic canning supplies that you'll need to do this. I purchased this many years ago on Amazon. They cost, at that time it cost about $65. I'm not sure how much they're up to today. And a water bath canner, I think you can get it for under $30. Often I have seen at Goodwill and thrift stores water bath canners. So that's something you don't need to buy new. That's pretty much it, what you need to have supplies. We are going to go over what we have already done before we start canning. This morning I washed, peeled, and diced about 10 pounds of potatoes. They're here in the sink. I completely sanitized my kitchen with bleach. I wiped down my countertops with bleach and the inside of my sink, and I always wash my hands very carefully. Everything when you home can needs to be clean, clean, clean. The last thing you want to do is make your family sick. So let's just say briefly, I've scrubbed, peeled, diced, and put my potatoes in a nice bowl with about a tablespoon of Fruit Fresh. If you don't have Fruit Fresh, you can use ascorbic acid or lemon juice. It's basically to keep the potatoes from browning while you're preparing everything. And now I'm going to rinse those potatoes, drain them, and put them back into the bowl for processing. So we're going to pause here.
Red button.
Okay, we're back again. So again, bear with me, please. This is the first time I've ever done this, and we'll see what happens, okay? So now we're back again, and I want to show, Michael, can you show what's in the sink here, please, sweetheart?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got my diced potatoes here in the Fruit Fresh. I've got some that I have rinsed and put in some nice, clear, cool water. So now I'm going to drain these. And the reason why you want to soak them, then rinse them maybe a good couple of times is because potatoes have a lot of starch. So you don't want your potatoes to look cloudy in the jar, and it's just not very appealing. It's not very cosmetically nice looking. So now that these are rinsed really good, and again, I digress. I forgot to mention that before we started again, I washed my hands with hot soap and water for 20 seconds, and I am sanitary. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is get myself a spoon. If we were working with a different type of material, I might need to have a ladle to ladle my stuff into the jars. And I'll also mention that my jars have been washed in a hot dishwasher cycle. They are clean. Normally, if I was water bath canning, excuse me, Michael. Laundry noise. If I was water bath canning, I would have put my jars into the oven at 250 for an additional 20 minutes while I was beginning all of this. But because we're pressure canning, that extra step is not necessary. And the process that I'm doing today with the potatoes is called a raw pack. So I am going to take my, I believe this is a pint jar. I'm going to take my jar, I'm going to throw in a scant half a teaspoon of canning salt, right here, canning salt. You want to use canning salt because it doesn't turn, again, another thing, cloudy and icky. So always use canning salt. Into the jar. And then I'm going to get a spoon, clean spoon, and I'm going to start putting my potatoes in the jar. And when I get about halfway up in the jar, I'm going to take, can you show over here, Michael? Thank you, honey. Okay, this is my pressure canner, and I have put water into my pressure canner up until the appropriate marking, and you're going to need to read the instructions on your canner. They're all different. My particular canner takes 3 quarts of water, and I always insert a quarter cup splash of white vinegar into my canner, either the pressure canner or the water bath canner, because the jars sometimes get like a mineral white film on them from our water. So that helps cut that down a little bit. And then I've got, this is the water that's going to go into my potato jars. It has been boiled and then left nice and hot, but not boiling. You do not want to take boiling water and put it into a cold jar. You will have a obvious, problem. The jar is going to break. So boil it, then let it get kind of calm. You're good. And then my lids have been washed meticulously and then put into water that is not boiling. It has before a simmer. So what that does is kind of soften the seal up a little bit, which is a good thing. So now we're going to get started here. I'm going to bring everything over here so it's easier for me to work. Got my jar. Got my clean ladle. Put my teaspoon, half a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to start putting my hot water in here. And again, it's just basically hot water. It's not so hot that I can't touch the jar because I don't want to break the jar and I don't want to burn myself. And then we have this very cool little thing here that lets us do a process. They call this in the canning world debubbling. Well, it's basically just making sure that you don't have a big pocket of air in the center, which I did experience yesterday because I was canning potatoes and I didn't cut them small enough. They were kind of huge and I really packed them in there tight. So my water went down during the, after the canning process. My water did digress into the jar. There's nothing wrong with this. They all sealed. The only problem with this is maybe over time there might be a slight discoloration on the top potatoes that aren't immersed in the water. However, it is edible, so no problem. So now I've debubbled a little bit. And for this, I'm gonna go about an inch below the rim. I wanna make sure that all my potatoes are covered. And I still have a little room in here. So waste not, want not, right, ladies? I'm gonna cover that up. That might have been overkill. That one's coming out. And I got a little bit too much water. That's coming out. Okay. So Michael, do you want to come in for a close-up and show up where I am here? I'm basically up to the first ring. The instructions say an inch, but I usually put a little bit more water in there. Mine's probably a half an inch. Your cool little thing here has a measuring thing on it. So basically that has me at 3/4 of an inch. So I would say anything here to 3/4 to an inch on the water line is totally fine. You want to make sure all your potatoes are submerged. Then I take a paper towel, clean, white vinegar, and I wipe my ring. And the reason why I use white vinegar to do this is because if I was canning meat or something other than just water, it can stick on your rim and you don't get a good seal. Then I take my magnet, I get my lid, I put it on, clean, washed ring, finger tight, not nuclear tight, just finger tight, and into my canner. My canner is not on yet. Because I'm doing a raw pack, I have cold, room temperature food in there. If I was to take that and stick that in a steaming hot canner, there's a possibility that the jar might crack. So what I'm gonna do is get everything in there, and then I'll start to raise the temperature of the water up, and we'll come back and I'll show you, I'll talk a little bit about the process time. Can you pause it, honey? Okay, we're back again. I have filled up all my jars and put the lids on them. And one thing I didn't talk about, which is important, is that you should inspect your glass jars around the rim and make sure there's no nicks or like cracks, things like that. If it's got a nick on the top, it will not seal, and that is dangerous. So when in doubt, throw it out. I don't know if this will come up on camera, Michael. Can you get like a close-up of that? This is one of my rings, which I'm going to discard. It's somehow over time got some kind of funky little darkness going on. There's probably nothing wrong with this, but I'm just on safety, on being precautious, I'm going to go ahead and dump it. I have, hundreds of these. These may be reused. The other part, the lid flat part, may not be reused. When you open your canned good, you throw that out. Yeah, get rid of it. These are okay, as long as they're clean, washed, and they don't have any rust or any funkiness, which is what I'm seeing here. Okay, so follow me over here, Michael. And we have all of the jars in the canner. We have the canner filled up to the canning containers manufacturer's instruction. I threw in a splash of white vinegar in there. This is what a pressure canner looks like on the inside. I strongly recommend you read the manual because there's certain little things that you always want to check to make sure that the things that should be open or clean are clean and open, and the seal is in good condition. So this is always a little tricky for me because I have some issues with my hands, but that goes on a certain way, and then it has a little, can you come over here, Michael? It has a little engraved thing that says open, close, so I know that it's properly handled. And then for our elevation here in Kennewick, we're less than 1,000 feet, so I only require 10 pounds of pressure. And this particular canning thing has these little weights, and for me that means one weight is 10 pounds of pressure. That goes on that little knob there. I have turned my canner on. It's going to take a few minutes before it gets up to boiling and starts working. When that happens, this little device starts to rock. This little thing over here, this vent pops up, and it starts to maintain pressure. Once this thing starts really cranking along and rocking, I adjust my temperature down just a little bit because you want to maintain that rock. And I put my timer on. For this size jars of potatoes, it's 35 minutes. And then after 35 minutes, I'll turn the canner off, and I will not touch it until it has released its pressure. And again, refer to the instructions on the the book that comes with the canner. I would say some safety tips here. If you have small children, you want to make sure that they are not in the kitchen during this part of the process, because this obviously is going to get very, very hot, and you would not want somebody inadvertently to come over here and, take the lid off during the process. I have to say that when I was younger, I was extremely nervous about pressure canning or pressure cooking. And I really didn't start pressure cooking until I was in my 50s. And now I'm like an avid pressure cooker. I wish I would have done it when I was in my 20s and 30s and I had young kids and was coming home and wanting to cook a meal in 30 minutes. But I was always really nervous of it, hearing tales of people exploding the canner and such. But nowadays they have very safe canners that are electric that you plug in that are really safe. So I would encourage any busy mom or working mom to look into that. Another resource would be the FDA has a website on canning safety. Almost all of states' university extensions have canning websites, and YouTube is just a wealth of information on learning how to can or different things that you can. We are so blessed here in the Tri-Cities to have all the fresh produce and fruit that it's really nice, especially in times like right now where we're all experiencing challenges getting certain items at the grocery store. If you could can it, you'd have it in your pantry. I wanted to show you some of the things that we can here. You can meat. This is what I call ugly chicken. It is basically chicken breast that I have purchased on sale and did, again, a raw pack type canning method. And this has to be pressure canned. And this chicken, if you can see it, I call it ugly chicken because cosmetically it's not that, fantastic looking, but I use this in soups, casseroles, tacos, chicken salads, quesadillas, enchiladas, tamales, anything. So if you buy canned chicken salad, if you buy canned chicken at the store, when you can buy chicken for 99 cents a pound and do this, it is by far more economical. Hands over. And it also, something I want to talk about canning is it frees up your freezer space. When we want to buy in bulk and for economic reasons, you come home with bags and bags of frozen food. A lot of us have additional freezers in the garage, but not everybody can do that. So this is a way that you can take advantage of those bargains and still have food stored safely for future use. And then you don't have to go to the store when the chicken is $3.99 and buy it. This is chicken soup, which has been pressure canned. It's basically chicken, carrots, potatoes, and onions. And I believe I've got green beans in there too. And this is beef stew. Same process. It has been pressure canned. And I, in the summer, do a lot of gardening, and I try to extend my harvest by canning. This is tomato sauce that I can. I'm blessed to have blackberry and raspberry bushes, so this is blackberry jam. This is more tomatoes. This is just whole tomatoes, so when you make soups, casseroles, tomato soup, anything, salsa, anything that you would use whole tomatoes for, you can them yourself. This is hamburger and hot dog relish or sandwich relish. My husband likes it in pasta salad and potato salad, tuna salad, all those things. This is made from zucchini and peppers and onions from my garden. This is apple pie filling here. And this is apple butter. So, I could go on and bring everything out from my pantry, but I just wanted to encourage you as families, when you're stuck in the house right now, to look for ways that you can reduce some stress. And with it being very challenging on finding certain food items, if you could have access to someone maybe that, as long as you're practicing the social distancing, has some of these canning supplies, maybe you could borrow or co-op with them and put up some stuff. It would take the stress away of having to go to the grocery store, or right now having to go to 6 grocery stores looking for a bag of potatoes. I hope this has been helpful for you all. I just want to encourage you all to stay positive, support your family, support your husbands and your children and your neighbors, and together we're all going to get through this. If I can be of any help to anyone, please send me a private message and I will do whatever I can to help you. May God bless you and your families.